本節目由 McDonald's APNX 贊助播出。
As the daughter of immigrants, financial struggles were part of my everyday reality. In high school, I became homeless and had to live in a women's shelter. Thankfully, being an APIA McDonald's scholar enabled me to attend college and begin a new chapter in my life. And now, my reality is filled with endless possibilities.
McDonald's 已通过 APIA Scholars 颁发将近300万元来支持美国亚裔学生。了解更多，请至 apanext.com。
欢迎大家来到由世界日報主辦、麥當勞 APA Next 計劃所贊助的升大學教育講座。首先呢，在這裡為大家介紹一下麥當勞對於此次活動的貢獻。美國的麥當勞支持亞太裔的美國學生 APIA 追求教育夢想呢，已經有超過15年的時間了。通過工作坊、導師計劃以及心理健康倡議等等形式，幫助了許多的莘莘學子。現在 APA Next 計劃的平台呢不斷發展，自2019年以來，麥當勞已經提供了接近300萬美元，幫助了355位 APIA 獎學金的得主。那在2024到2025這個學年度呢，獎學金分為2個等級，相信這也是大家非常關心的。第一個等級呢是2萬美元，分4年來發放，支持獲選學生的高等教育。而第二個等級呢是1年性一次性發放的5000美元，為表現優異且有經濟需求的學生提供幫助。選拔的依據呢則是學術成就，這是一方面；社區參與，還有非常重要的就是您實際的財務狀況了。今年呢 ，APA Next 與 Signet Education 合作，提供大學申請、財務及獎學金等方面的工作坊，並且呢與 Yellow Chair Collective 合作，為家長和學生在申請的過程當中提供心理健康方面的支持。那麼有更多的需求呢，或者想要了解更多信息的各位民眾朋友們，歡迎您立即訪問 apanext.com。重複一下 apanext.com， 讓麥當勞幫助您實現學術夢想。
So to preface, my part and my perspective is to kind of just offer my journey to Columbia. So what we're basically going to be doing is what Tiffany did, but on a larger scale, a full-on case study of me. So brief introductions, I'm a second year at Columbia University studying financial economics with a minor in business administration, and I am a 2023 DFS one-time food scholar. Just to kind of preface this beforehand, I don't want the students in here to compare themselves to anything I show them today. The thing with the college admissions process is that everyone is unique, right? You're trying to promote your own story, and so when you look at these stats, I don't want you to your first instinct to be, okay, how do I compare to that? It should be, at the end of this, you should be getting out, how do I stand out now? How do I go about working on my application? And so the first thing I really want to tackle is just my journey to Columbia, what inspired me to apply and ultimately pursue a major in financial economics. Show of hands, who is thinking of applying to Columbia who was already applied so far? Amazing. Okay. Next thing I want to touch upon is this balance between academic and extracurriculars. A lot of the times, at least I was told when I was applying that, there's this balance between academics and extracurriculars you have to hit, which I do agree with. That is something you need to manage, but I would not put them on the same footing. I think what the other presenters have highlighted is really important. Academics is the foundation, and it was the foundation of my application. And I used extracurriculars as kind of the next step to that, right? So the balance between academics and extracurriculars are important, but I would not put them on the same or equal footing. And when, say, admissions officers look at that profile, at least for me, I wanted them to see, yes, I could keep up with the academics, but I would also be involved in extracurricular life in college. But on the note of picking the perfect institution, the word perfect is subjective here because there is no perfect institution. Everything is really quite subjective. But what I found is that the theme of fit is important. The next thing I think I'm going to show you is what I call my safety list, my fit, my reach list for colleges when I applied. But you need to do your research about what makes each institution unique. So when I was applying, of course, I was that kid who I want to go to an Ivy League, but which Ivy League do I choose, right? Now, going to Columbia, it has shown me that every single Ivy League is different in its own way. And it's your job to find out what makes it different and show that in your application as to why you think you would fit into that specific institution. Picking out certain things as to why you want to go to that school, and that comes with research, right? And your reason for applying should not be because it's a T20 school. If you look at the US News rankings and you say, oh, I want to go here because it's in the top 10, that is not a reason to write in your application. It shouldn't be a reason for you to submit an application to that institution as well. I think there are other underlying reasons you can find as to why they're top 20 schools, and those could be your foundation. But if your, say, reason to apply is because they're just a top 20 school, I highly suggest reconsidering that as your institution of choice. But as I said before, research is definitely key. A tip I will give right off the bat is that a lot of people wait until the last minute to apply. Every single application of mine, regardless of if it was a CUNY or SUNY, I spent 2 days on. And I did that because day one was research day. I would go through their Instagrams, I would go through their, say, websites, pick out the information I wanted to write about in my supplements, and then day two is when I actually tackle the supplements. So I feel like that research and writing balance is very important. Know your choices, your options. You have CUNY programs, you have SUNY programs, local colleges that I'm going to talk about. But also, know what matters to you, right? Moved on to my safety schools. Now for my safety, when I judged safety schools, I put everything relative to my school standing. So I looked at where everyone in my past class went, so the year before me. And from there, I was able to put together a list of what I thought were decent schools. When I compare my GPA with, say, last year's valedictorian, or I compare my AP levels with other people, where other people got into, and I made my safety list from that. From that, you got universities like George Washington, UConn, Purdue, UF, local institutions like Hofstra, LIU, Adelphi, and Molloy. Originally, I'm from Long Island, and so I'm right out the city. And so a lot of these institutions, I'm talking about Hofstra or LIU, they would come into my school and basically tell me if I'm admitted on the spot. I think a lot of local colleges still do this, if maybe not in the city, but I know Long Island still has a lot of that policy. But for me, each of these has a reason that they're on there, right? They're not on there because they're a top 30. It's because when I looked at their website, when I looked at their core values, when I looked at their classes, their professors, something stood out about them that made me want to attend that institution. Why did I ultimately choose Columbia? So I applied ED1, which is like the first round, but at the base level of why, I think it is because of the Ivy League institution, but that's not because of the ranking. More specifically, the year I applied is the year that Columbia dropped in ranking. And so ranking was really not a big factor for me. I knew I wanted to attend, even if their rank was, maybe 30. And the reason why I put the Ivy League status as the base foundation is they offer quality of education that other schools might not, right? That comes with the alumni network, the career network, and the resources and aid. There's a reason why these Ivy Leagues stay Ivy Leagues or are able to stay around for so long. And for me, that appeal was the alumni network that I had that could ensure me getting a job, that could help me along the way.
As the daughter of immigrants, financial struggles were part of my everyday reality. In high school, I became homeless and had to live in a women's shelter. Thankfully, being an APIA McDonald Scholar enabled me to attend college and begin a new chapter in my life. And now, my reality is filled with endless possibilities.
McDonald's 已通过 APIA Scholars 颁发将近300万元来支持美国亚裔学生。了解更多，请至 apanext.com。
The basis of my supplements was this connection back to Key Club. I wanted to kind of show them my commitment to service, show them how I wanted to better my community. And that's what Key Club offered me. When I was doing Key Club is really a community service club beyond anything. And so that I wanted to carry out that theme of community throughout my supplements and my application. And then the cherries on top are, of course, the people and the atmosphere. When I visited, you get this very play hard, work hard dynamic, right? And I think that was like what I was going for when I applied. People who work hard, who will study, but won't be always locked in their room. Who are willing to engage outside that sphere as well. And then the plus was the city. Choosing not the right major, but your major, right? And I think students here will get a lot of pressure from parents as the sentiment that colleges expect you to have your vision planned out for the future, that you have to pick the right major right now, there's no point of going back. Like, what are you gonna do? I was like throwing all these questions when I was applying, and just coming out of high school and you're thinking about grades, when you're thinking about extracurriculars, these are hard questions to answer. So they're daunting questions, and quite respectfully, in my opinion, the wrong questions to ask by parents as well. Instead, kind of ask yourself like what you see yourself doing, and going from there. What piques your interest? Is there a field that you're wanting to explore? A subject you're wanting to dive into further, right? Another pro as to why I applied to Columbia is Columbia was one institution that did not make me choose one major. When you apply to Columbia, you choose 3 majors, and you rank the 3 as 1, 2, 3, and they take into account that maybe the thing you rank number 1 is what you're intending to go into, but it's not a guarantee, right? They want to see what other interests you have. And so when I applied to Columbia, I ranked all 3. And so just a personal story about choosing the right major, this is where I was at when I was applying to college. When I ranked the 3, it was in this order. It was pre-med, pre-law, and econ. And right now I'm doing econ. So just when you're applying, especially a note to parents, don't be too hard about choosing the perfect major right now. A lot of these colleges don't make you commit to a major until your second year. So the key takeaway here is basically don't stress too much about the major. There's a reason why there's an undecided option as well. Don't always shy away from that. If you want to apply undecided, you can. And understanding it as an applicant, but also looking at it from the view of, say, the admissions officer as well, right? Because ideally, the admissions officer wants to admit everyone if they can, but realistically, they have a threshold, they have a maximum they need to meet. I wanted to kind of show growth from 9th grade to 12th grade and in like the type of person I am. And then I wanted to end on a positive note with this forward-facing outlook. And that kind of connected back to this one theme that really stood out to me. It was the first Key Club speech I gave. It was on the theme of like vision. And so I ran with that, connecting it to stuff related to vision. And that includes like vision for the future, what I saw in myself, what I saw at Columbia, or what I saw in higher education. But my biggest advice for anyone applying is don't let the prompts guide your statement. In fact, the way I did it was I wrote my statement without looking at the prompts beforehand, and I chose the prompt that best suited my statement. Because the personal statement it's what it sounds like. It's a personal statement about yourself. Usually it's not a problem if you like kind of talk about your personal statement and then shift it into a question. A lot of these questions are broad. They will fit whatever you're trying to tell. And so personal statements are really about deep introspection. And that's what I found out after many essays. And I would go through a lot of them until you found like this rhythm that you could follow. But this start strong, end strong dynamic is always what I went for. You want to grasp their attention. Selecting the right recommendations. In full transparency, I submitted a FERPA waiver. So I never got to read any of my letters of recommendation, and I don't think most people will. When you apply, you have the opportunity to sign this waiver that basically says, I never read my letter of recommendation. And that, I think, has just more credibility to it. If an admissions officer knows that you're going to read your letter of recommendation, your teachers might not be honest with them. Right. So the 2 I ended up choosing were my Key Club advisor, who doubled as my AP English Lit teacher, who, because she was both my AP Lit teacher and my Key Club advisor, knew what I did in both. And the next one was my AP Seminar teacher and my Student Government advisor. So this dynamic of one extracurricular and then one in-class professor was also important. General advice for applicants, 4 different advices. That I've mentioned before, fit is so important. Admissions officers want to admit people who will engage with their community. But likewise, as an applicant, you need to be able to engage with that community. So, as I said before, you don't want to be applying to schools just because they're ranked number 1 on USA News, right? So, because if you don't fit in, that rank doesn't matter. Because what ends up happening, I've seen so many people transfer out and go to another institution, and you're gonna have to go through this entire process again if you don't find the right fit, right? Last one I think is so important. Like, all will be well, guys. A lot of people have gone through this process of applying for college apps. Some people get into their dream schools, some people don't. But I know people who are very happy at where they are right now, even if it's not, say, a top 30 school, right? You're going to get a lot of pressure from parents of applying here, applying there. And parents, you should understand, like, your child, they're going through a lot of stress. Like, this is not an easy process as well. But at the end of the day, regardless of where they go, it's really reflective of fit. They're going to be a good fit for the institution that they choose, and there's a reason why the admissions officer admitted them to that school as well.